My husband got drunk at his brother's birthday party and said that he didn't love me and had never felt anything for me after 5 years of marriage. I remember the soft glow of the dining room lights that evening. The air was tinged with the scent of roast chicken and wine, laughter echoing gently around the table. My sister-in-law had done her trademark magic perfect table settings, fresh flowers, and a playlist of familiar songs drifting from a small speaker in the corner. It was my brother-in-law's birthday, and everything seemed poised for a warm, family celebration. But there was an undercurrent, a tension I couldn't quite place. My husband, Tom, had been behaving a little off all day. He was quieter than usual, checking his phone constantly, giving curt answers when asked about his day. I brushed it off as pre-party nerves. After all, Tom was never great in social situations with extended family. I thought I was helping by keeping him distracted, asking about his week, complimenting his new jacket, even teasing him gently as we set the table together. Once everyone arrived, the room shifted. There were jokes and stories passed around, glasses refilled, and the first course was served. My father-in-law told a story about his own younger days, a clumsy skiing accident that ended in stitches and laughter. Tom laughed, but I noticed how his smile never quite reached his eyes. I placed a hand on his arm. He looked at me, offered a weak smile, and nodded. I felt a pang of worry but followed the evening's rhythm. A second glass of red wine, I reminded myself. I'd fill his glass when the waiter came over, effortlessly slipping in another pour when he wasn't looking, partially out of habit, partially to smooth his mood. Funerals and celebrations alike, we often used that quiet ritual to settle into moments together. Midway through the main course, someone proposed a toast. The moment came, to another year, to family, to love. Glasses raised. I caught his eyed warmth, familiarity. He clinked glasses with me, but it felt cold. After the toast, the room roared with applause, louder laughter. Suddenly, someone passed him another glass and he drank it in one go. I frowned. "Tom, pace yourself," I whispered. He shrugged her off and took another drink. Someone started telling an old story about when they were kids, something about falling in the garden, and the room erupted again. I tried to laugh, but my heart was racing. Later, during a lull between courses, I saw his hand shaking slightly as he lifted the wine. I touched him. "Hey," I murmured, "are you okay?" He looked at me, his pupils dilated, face pale. Don't do that," he said tightly. I withdrew my hand, hurt and confused. I glanced around, no one else had noticed. They were too busy with their own conversations. Someone cracked a joke, and the laughter filled the room again. But I felt a crack. I tried to keep smiling. Then came dessert, birthday cake, candles, a hearty happy birthday chorus. He'd managed a few smiles. Then the wine came around again, dessert wine this time. Rich and heavy. He took a small sip. I exhaled, relieved. But the atmosphere changed. He seemed to relax, too much. His shoulders slumped. He said something loud and silly, and everyone laughed. I leaned in. "Babe, dinner was amazing," I said quietly. "Thank you." He nodded, but I could feel his energy draining. I touched his back lightly. Suddenly, his head jerked up. "I gotta say something," he slurred, voice louder than intended. Conversation paused. Glasses stilled. My heart halted. He stared at me. "I don't love you," he declared. "Never have." The words froze everyone. Gasps. My breath caught. The last fruit dessert on my fork dropped silently onto the plate. Tom closed his eyes as though he regretted speaking at all. I wanted to grab him, fix this, pull him back to the moment, but I was rooted to my chair. My dinner guest stared at us, my side of the family in shock, his side silent. He looked around, trying to steer back. "I'm sorry. That's not how I..." His brother, in whose honor we'd gathered, stared at Tom, mouth open. "What?" he demanded. Tom's head lowered. I didn't know how else to say it, his voice cracked. "Sorry." The room stayed silent. My cheeks burned. I blinked back tears. My husband put his head on the table, quiet sobs shaking his shoulders. A sudden hush fell over the celebration, the kind of pause that saps warmth. I blinked, seeing the sheen on his lashes, the promise of explanation in his eyes, the wreckage of our shared years on his face. The table felt impossibly wide. That night, I left the party with Tom leaning on me, one arm around my waist. Meanwhile, guests whispered behind my back, awkwardly echoing condolences to me. My heart was pounding, not from the humiliation, but from fear that I might be misunderstanding something fundamental about our 5 years together. In the car, Tom's hand shook as he gripped the steering wheel, though he'd barely had more than 3 glasses. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. I reached for him but didn't touch him, unsure how. I don't know what came over me. But I did know. Something had been hiding beneath the surface for some time. Something I hadn't seen or chose not to. And now it was out. I sat in silence, tears burning behind my eyelids, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of the person I thought I knew. The birthday lights faded behind us as we drove home. The street lamps glowed like distant questions. And in my ear, I heard him whisper once more, "I don't love you." The silence that settled over our home that night felt unnatural, like a theater after a play where no one claps. Tom had collapsed on the couch, half asleep, half hiding. I stood in the hallway, coat still on, staring at him. The man I'd loved for 5 years. The man who had just told a room full of people he'd never loved me. For a moment, I debated waking him, to demand clarity, to argue, to beg. But I didn't. I walked to the bedroom and shut the door quietly. The lock clicked without a second thought. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in bed, staring at the far wall where moonlight traced shifting patterns across the plaster. I replayed every conversation we'd had the past month, every glance, every kiss, or lack thereof. I had a notepad on my nightstand. Around 2 a.m., I grabbed it and wrote, "When did it start to fade?" But no answer came. The next morning was Sunday. I got up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table while it brewed. The hum of the machine, the smell of roasted beans, the sunrise, everything felt strangely normal. Like my life hadn't just fractured in the space of a drunken confession. Tom shuffled in just after 8. His face was drawn, his eyes bloodshot. I didn't speak first. I wanted to see if he would say anything real. He sat down across from me, blinking at the coffee cup I'd placed for him. His hands hovered around it, but he didn't drink. "I don't remember what I said," he murmured. "A lie. Or maybe a shield." I stared at him. "You do," I replied. "You said you don't love me." "Never have." He flinched. "I was drunk. I didn't mean it." "You said it with a clear voice." He looked away. "I was trying to. I don't know, provoke something. I've been feeling weird lately." That phrase. Feeling weird. As if it was a common cold. I felt my chest tighten. "So it's not true?" I asked. "You do love me?" He hesitated. And that hesitation spoke louder than any admission could. He rubbed his temples, eyes closed. "I care about you, okay? I care a lot. But love? I don't know. Maybe I thought I did. Or I convinced myself." It was like being hit with cold water. I didn't even know what to say. We'd built a life, shared rent, shared routines, shared holidays. I had memorized his coffee order, knew how he liked his eggs, had folded his laundry more times than I could count. Was all of that habit? "How long have you felt this way?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "It's not that simple. I've just been numb." Numb. Another word that meant nothing and everything. I stood up. "You don't just accidentally stay with someone for 5 years." He looked up at me, and for a moment, there was pain in his expression, genuine or performative, I wasn't sure. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I whispered. "In front of everyone." "I didn't plan it. It just came out." "Because you've been hiding it for so long?" He nodded slowly. "I guess. Yeah. That day, I didn't cry. I washed the dishes. I walked the dog. I texted my sister a vague, "Something happened. I'll call later." Tom stayed mostly in the living room, watching TV with the volume low, as if he were afraid to make noise. We didn't speak for the rest of the day. There was a barrier between us now, thick and invisible. I started noticing little things I hadn't before, how he never really looked me in the eye anymore, how his responses to affection were always delayed, how he never initiated anything unless prompted. That night, I found myself scrolling through old photos, smiling vacations, dinners with friends, birthdays where he'd held my hand. Was it all pretend? Or had something broken and slowly decayed without me noticing? On Monday, he went to work like nothing had happened. I stayed home. I took a sick day without telling anyone the truth. I told myself I needed clarity. What I really needed was space to fall apart. I called my best friend, Nadia. I hadn't told her yet. She answered on the second ring. Hey! How was the party? I paused. Tom told everyone he never loved me. The silence on her end was deafening. Then, what? Just what I said, I murmured. In front of everyone. She gasped. Are you okay? What happened? I told her everything, how he drank, how his tone changed, how his confession cut clean through the night. Nadia didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, she said, that's not just drunk talk, Denver. People don't say those things unless they've thought about them. I know. What are you going to do? I don't know. She offered to come over, but I declined. I needed to sit with this. Feel it. Not run. That evening, I waited for him to come home. When he walked through the door, he looked startled to see me sitting at the kitchen table. We need to talk, I said. He nodded slowly, almost grateful. I need honesty now. The real kind. No dodging, no numbing. Just tell me. Are we done? He sat across from me again, mirroring our conversation from the day before. I don't know what we are, he said. But I know I can't pretend anymore. There it was. The death knell of our marriage. Not shouted. Not screamed. Just whispered into the kitchen air. And yet, I still couldn't decide whether to grieve or fight. 5 years. Not perfect years, but ours. Could I really let that go because of one moment of clarity? Or was it only ever me who believed we had something real? I started sleeping in the guest room the next night. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't storm off or slam doors. I just folded my pillow under my arm and closed the door behind me. Tom didn't try to stop me. I think that hurt more than if he had. The guest room smelled faintly of cardboard and old laundry detergent, a place rarely used, still half filled with unpacked boxes from 3 moves ago. I lay awake, watching shadows creep across the ceiling, and imagined our wedding day in reverse. Vows unraveling. Photos curling at the edges. Rings slipping off. In the days that followed, we became polite strangers. We still shared the kitchen, passed each other in the hallway, asked basic questions. Did you feed the dog? Have you seen my charger? But nothing deeper. It was like we were actors playing house, only we'd forgotten our lines. On Wednesday, I came home to find him cooking dinner. A peace offering, maybe. He had made pasta, my favorite. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. After 5 years, this was the effort? We ate in silence. Forks scraping ceramic, sauce simmering in the background. He finally spoke halfway through his plate. I've been thinking about therapy, he said quietly. For yourself or for us? I asked. He hesitated. Both, maybe. I don't want to leave things like this. Like what? I said, more sharply than I meant. Broken? His jaw clenched. I didn't mean it like that. But I was tired of gentle tones and vagueness. I needed sharp edges, clean wounds. I don't know if I can come back from what you said, Tom. You stood up in front of everyone we know and told them our marriage is a lie. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I snapped. You didn't just hurt me, Tom. You humiliated me. His face turned red, then pale. I know. He stood up, pushed his plate away. I'm going for a walk. He left without another word. I sat at the table for a long time, staring at the door, wondering if I should follow him. But I didn't. I finished my pasta. Alone. That night, I opened our wedding album. I hadn't touched it in years. I always thought that meant we were so happy, we didn't need to look back. Now, I wasn't so sure. There we were, smiling, wind blowing through my veil, his hand on my waist. I tried to see it through his eyes. Did he already feel numb then? Was he pretending from the start? The next few days blurred together. I went to work. I answered emails. I avoided calls from family and friends who had been at the party. My sister texted, "Do you want to talk?" I ignored it. I wasn't ready to explain something I barely understood myself. On Saturday, Nadia came over unannounced. She brought tea, like she always did when something was wrong. Tell me everything, she said, settling on the couch beside me. So I did. All of it. The silence, the failed conversations, the empty bedroom. I told her about the pasta, the therapy idea, the way his eyes looked when he thought I wasn't watching. She listened without judgment. I don't get it, I whispered. We weren't perfect, but we were okay. I thought we were okay. Maybe that's the problem, she said gently. Maybe he didn't want okay anymore. Or maybe he doesn't know what he wants at all. But I do, I said. I wanted this. Us. A life. Why is it always the one who doesn't know who gets to break everything? She hugged me, and for the first time all week, I cried. Not just quiet tears, but full body, soul-shaking sobs. I cried for the woman I'd been 5 years ago, so hopeful. I cried for the nights I'd stayed up planning our future, for the holidays we spent as if love were eternal. I cried because I still loved him, even now, even with the truth laid bare. That evening, I found Tom on the balcony, smoking a cigarette. He rarely smoked, only when stressed. I leaned on the doorframe and looked at him. Do you still want to go to therapy? I asked. He turned, surprised. Yes. If you do. I want answers, I said. Not closure. I want to know what happened. I deserve that. He nodded. I know. We made the appointment the next day. A couples counselor downtown. A stranger who would sit between us and try to sort our lives like puzzle pieces we'd stopped recognizing. I didn't know if it would fix anything. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet, not without understanding what broke. Not without trying, one last time, to see if the pieces still fit. Our first therapy session was on a gray Wednesday morning. Rain tapped softly against the window of the small office, as if mimicking the caution in our footsteps. The therapist, a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense air, asked us to sit on the couch. She introduced herself Emma and asked why we were there. Neither of us answered right away. Finally, I said, my husband told me he never loved me. Her eyes shifted to Tom. Is that true? He swallowed, visibly uncomfortable. Yes. I said it. But I was drunk, and it came out, harsher than I meant. But was it true? Emma asked. Silence again. Tom looked down at his hands. It felt true. In that moment. In that moment, she repeated softly. What about before that? He took a long breath. I thought I did love her. Maybe I did, in a way. But it never felt like how people say it should. It never felt big. The words landed like stones in my stomach. I stared at the beige carpet, suddenly aware of every thread of pain in my chest. Emma turned to me. What are you feeling right now? Like I've been living in a different reality, I said. Like we were reading two versions of the same book. Tom looked at me then, and his face cracked just a little. I never wanted to lie to you. But you did, I said. Every single day you said I love you and didn't mean it, that was a lie. He winced. I didn't know I didn't mean it until, later. I thought it was what love looked like. Emma leaned forward. Tell me more about that. Tom exhaled. I grew up thinking love was being there. Providing. Stability. My parents never said I love you, but they stayed married. I thought if I stayed loyal and we didn't fight much, that meant I loved her. So when did that idea begin to break down? Emma asked. Tom hesitated. Maybe a year ago. I started feeling like I was fading. Like I was performing someone else's life. And I kept waiting for it to pass. And you didn't say anything. I didn't want to hurt her, he said. I didn't want to be the guy who gave up. I laughed bitterly. So instead, you waited until your brother's birthday to detonate everything in public? He looked down again. Emma held up a hand. Let's focus on what's underneath. Tom, do you want to stay married? He didn't answer right away. The pause dragged out until the ticking wall clock became deafening. I don't know, he said finally. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Emma turned to me. And you? I took a breath. I thought I did. But now. I don't know who I'm trying to stay married to. The session ended with an agreement to come back the following week. We walked out in silence, the rain still falling steadily. We got into the car. He drove. I looked out the window. Halfway home, he said, "You can hate me. I deserve it." "I don't hate you," I said quietly. "I think that's what makes this so much harder." We didn't talk again until the next session. Week by week, things started to come into focus, not in the way I expected. We didn't find a magical solution. But we found clarity. He admitted that he'd been emotionally detached for longer than he could admit. That he'd mistaken comfort for connection. That, at some point, our lives became a routine he no longer felt inside of. I told him how I had noticed him pulling away, how I tried to fix things by giving more, being more accommodating, hoping he'd meet me halfway. But he never did. And I didn't ask why, because I was scared of the answer. We talked about our first year together, how quickly we'd moved in, how fast we'd fallen into shared habits, how neither of us ever paused to ask, "Are we right for each other?" We just kept going, because going forward felt easier than stopping. In the third session, Emma said something that stuck with me. Sometimes love doesn't die in flames. Sometimes it slips out quietly, and you only notice when the silence becomes deafening. After that session, I asked Tom, "Do you feel guilty?" He nodded. "Every day." "Then why didn't you leave sooner?" He shrugged. "Because I wanted to be someone who didn't quit. I wanted to be worthy of you." "That's the thing," I said. "You weren't giving me you. You were giving me a version of you. And I loved that version." He looked away. Later that night, I wrote in my journal, "I think I loved the idea of him more than the man himself. I think he loved the life we built more than the person he built it with." The following week, Emma gave us a choice. You can try to rebuild, knowing what you now know. Or you can choose to part ways with honesty and grace. Neither of us answered right away. I looked at Tom, and for the first time in weeks, I saw him clearly, not as the man I married, not as the person who hurt me, but as someone who was also lost. He looked back and gave a small, sad smile. "I think we both know," he said. I nodded. We held hands that night, not out of romance, but out of respect. 5 years of shared life, memories, laughter, even love in its own quiet way. It deserved a gentler ending than a shout at a dinner table. We didn't split overnight. It was a series of small, deliberate steps, canceling the joint gym membership, closing the shared savings account, taking turns staying at our friends' places while we figured out who would move out first. We didn't rush. Maybe because we were scared of what would come after, or maybe because we still had some respect left between us, some thread of compassion neither of us wanted to sever completely. We told our families a few weeks later. Tom called his brother first, the same one whose birthday had unknowingly hosted the beginning of our ending. "I owe you an apology," Tom said, voice calm but resolute. "For what happened that night." His brother was gracious but stunned. "Are you two really ending it?" Tom nodded. "We're trying to do it right this time." My family took it harder. My sister was furious. "You're just going to let him walk away after that?" she demanded over the phone. "I'm not letting him do anything," I said. "We're choosing peace. That's the most love we can offer each other now." Not everyone understood, and that was okay. It wasn't their story. It was ours. I moved out first, back into the apartment I had before we got married. It felt strange, like stepping into an old pair of shoes that didn't quite fit anymore. But it was mine. I repainted the walls. Bought new sheets. Threw away the wine glasses from our wedding registry. Some nights were harder than others. I'd catch myself cooking too much pasta, expecting him to walk through the door. Or I'd wake up reaching across the bed, forgetting for a split second that no one was there. Therapy didn't stop with the divorce. I kept going. Emma helped me untangle my identity from my role as a wife. Helped me remember the parts of me that had dimmed during those years. I told her about how I used to write poetry, how I hadn't touched a journal in 3 years until the night after Tom's confession. She encouraged me to write again. So I did. The first poem was short and clumsy. But it felt good, honest. A few weeks later, I submitted it anonymously to an online journal. They published it. No fanfare, no grand moment. Just a quiet reminder that I still had a voice. Tom and I didn't stay close. But we stayed kind. We exchanged a few emails to sort out final logistics. His messages were short, respectful. One ended with, "I hope you find the kind of love I couldn't give." I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. But because I didn't need to anymore. I went to dinner with Nadia one night, months after the split. We talked and laughed, and for the first time, I didn't bring up Tom at all. I didn't notice that until she said, "You seem lighter." I smiled. "I feel lighter." She raised her glass. "To you. To freedom. To healing." I clinked mine gently against hers. "To starting over." Spring came, and with it, a subtle shift. I found myself humming in the mornings. I rearranged my bookshelves. I joined a hiking group. Not to meet someone, not to prove I was moving on, just to move. And slowly, the quiet ache that had lived in my chest for so long began to dull. It didn't vanish. Some losses leave soft echoes. But it no longer defined me. One night, I stood by my window, watching the sunset turn the sky a dozen shades of fire. I thought about the woman I was the night of that birthday dinner, stunned, betrayed, unraveling. She was still with me. But so was someone new. Someone who had walked through grief, through confusion, through the slow realization that love doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes, it means letting go before it turns into resentment. Sometimes, it means recognizing that staying would only deepen the wound. I whispered to the empty room, "I forgive you, Tom." And I meant it. Because he hadn't destroyed me. He'd forced me to rediscover myself. And maybe, in a strange way, that was its own kind of gift. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.